Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a reel from Penn. It's the GTO 230. It's a large level line reel, almost the 4,000 size if you were to match this up against the Senator. This reel was initially made in 2005 when Penn moved their production to China. I believe this is a Chinese-made reel. And it had about a 6-year run. It went from 2005 to 2011. It's got some nice features on it. Stainless steel trim rings, plated, I think it's anodized, but it's plated spool. Nice looking reel overall. Big level line feature capable of handling large fish like bluefish, striped bass, salmon, and the like. And well, we're going to take this reel apart. We're going to show you how it's made, how to service it. Now keep it running for a long time to come. So let's get started by taking off the exterior pieces. When I remove the exterior pieces, well, that always gives me a chance to remind you that if you haven't subscribed to my channel, and thank you to everybody who has, but if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you enjoy learning about fishing reels, how to service them, and how to keep them in top shape so they don't fail you when you're out on the water, then I would encourage you to subscribe. If you do subscribe, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting a video, and you can take a look at that video, see if that's something you would like to learn more about in terms of the fishing reels. Well, this one, whatever this plating is, it got knocked around a little bit. I thought that was some kind of debris on there, but it appears to be more like rust. Okay, handle. Underneath the handle there is a spacer ring, and then we have a big star adjuster on there. And once we remove those and the inner sleeve, well, we can take that side plate off and get to servicing this reel. This is, well, I guess this is what would be the replacement to the 300 series that Penn had as level line reels. Those were their first graphite introductions. And well, that had the 310, 320, 330. I believe it was the super one was the 345. You don't see too many of those big ones, but this would line up with that super. When you take these reels off, notice the positions of the screws, and if those screws happen to be all the same length. I just noticed that when I took the one off the bottom here, that screw is shorter than the one I took off in the side. So just mark those locations. Pay attention when you do this, and hopefully that'll make it easier in terms of reinstall. I don't know why the one screw happened to be longer. It might be a side post there, but these are all those self-tapping screws. All right, so far well, they're all kind of the same length. Maybe this one's a little bit different. We'll see. So we have two long screws. One goes into this part, the other goes into this crossbar. The other three screws are shorter screws. With those screws removed, I think we should be able to pull the side plate off now. We'll see the bridge. The bridge is almost identical to that 330 bridge we were talking about earlier as the one that this reel replaced. Interesting. Okay, we're going to just clean up the insides of this. This reel was interesting. It had very heavy braided line on it. The owner had asked me to remove that. The owner is Ron. Ron is out of Florida. He does a lot of trolling and the like, so I can see where that heavy-duty line was playing into the game. But he had asked me to remove that, so we did. And we're going to take a moment here while I have that spool off to use a rod and reel cleaner. This is Penn's rod and reel cleaner. A little piece of a kitchen scrubby with a little bit of that rod and reel cleaner on it. We're just going to spin the reel spool here. That'll clean up the debris that was on the line and restore the shine to it. Well, they say the rings are stainless steel. That's perfect for ocean. You don't want to worry too much about the salt corroding pieces. But then we looked at the handle, and I guess the handle must be some kind of an aluminum or something. Whatever it is, that aluminum handle shows the rust on it. Okay. Recommend when you have these off, take a moment to test the bearings. I'm just going to use a screwdriver to make sure that it spins nicely. I did a test of the reel before we had started servicing it. I did not notice any issues with the bearings. And I'm going to place some oil on the bearing. You have a transfer or idler gear, which goes between the spool and the worm gear, which drives the line guide assembly both ways. And you don't need to grease those. Actually, grease holds a lot of dirt. So I do tend to use the oil as a way to keep that lubricated without worrying about getting it grease choked. There's a pawl in here. If you gently tap the reel, most of the time that pawl will come out. You want to make sure this pawl is clean. This one is very clean, but for just showing it to you, making sure that it is clean, then you can go reinstall it back into the carrier. Before you press down on it completely, put a drop of oil on there. That'll help it when it needs to make the swing turns at the end of it. Hold it in, and then just turn the wheel to make sure that it pulls that pawl all the way in flat with the top. You need to make sure that that is seated properly. Once you do that, you can put the cap back on. And again, I don't put grease into the line guide mechanism. I will oil that worm gear. Now, if that worm gear was dirty, and this one's very, very clean, but what you could do is you could spray that with a penetrating oil, then hold a cloth over this, in this case a paper towel, and just spin it, and that will transfer the dirt over to the paper towel out of harm's way. And this one's ready to go. All right, that's the back side of the case. You can put a little bit of grease onto the stud on the end of the spool. That spool shaft will ride inside that bearing we retested earlier, but it doesn't hurt to put a little piece of grease on there. Let's go over to this now. As I mentioned, this is almost the identical design of the 300 series of reels that it replaced. First thing you want to do on this one is remove the bridge screws. There's 4 of them. There is an anti-reverse dog sitting on the back that will be released when one of these screws is removed. And there's a spring on that anti-reverse dog. Right now it's on the post. So if you find that the spring comes out, don't worry it terribly. But know that it's there, and know that, well, you could be in jeopardy of shooting it. This one right here. I'm going to try and do this without removing that spring, but be aware that it is right on that post. Now these are a little bit different. A lot of the bridges that you find on a Penn reel will have 2 screws that are fully threaded and 2 that are partially threaded. In this reel, they are all partially threaded. So no big worry there. Once you verify that those screws are all the same, put them in a safe place. I use a parts tray. That's where I've been depositing all of the pieces that I have removed, except for the very large ones. And with those pieces in the parts tray, I know where they are when it comes time to reinstall. Okay, we should be able to release. I'm going to turn that over. That should release all of the pieces. It did. And here's that spring, which fortunately released with the dog, and now is on the ground here. That's your anti-reverse dog spring. That's your anti-reverse dog. And I probably should have told you before I started that you should take pictures along the way before you start doing something like this, because if you lose the orientation on this, well, it just becomes a little bit difficult to guess where those pieces go. And I'm going to make sure that we are on the top end of this. We're going to remove the jack. I'm just curious. Sometimes these have part numbers on them. I'm just curious if this reel actually said 310 for some of those parts. All right, we're just cleaning off the dirt. This is one of the problems I noticed when these reels went to China. The plating on these is just not right. You can see how the plating is worn. The other ones used to be pure brass. When they changed over to these, they started using some funky metal in there. And, well, enough said. All right, check all of your teeth on your pinion gear. I'm going to spray this. I'm going to use a penetrating oil. In this case, it's WD-40 that I'm using. I just use that as a basic degreaser. And I'm going to take a bristle brush. It's one of those dollar store package brushes. You usually get a steel brush, a brass brush, and a bristle brush. I use that to clean the teeth. Once you clean the teeth, check all of the tracks and make sure that those are all clean and that there's nothing disturbed about it, such as a piece that would be broken off or a chipped tooth and the like. Okay, once we get the main gears and drag washer sets out of there, there's a pin that holds the main gear sleeve through the shaft, and you want to push out on that. Sometimes it needs a little bit more than a push. Remember, this was last made in 2011. I don't know when it was last serviced. But that little pin there will kind of get stuck in the channel from time to time. That should clear it there. Yeah. You want to remove that. If you can leave that pin in, it's an advantage. But if it comes out, don't worry about it. It goes back in easy enough. We wanted to take that off so we can clean the bridge shaft. And again, you can see it here. Whatever this metal is, we have a plating on it, but then the plating is worn off. And it's worn off in places where it just doesn't make sense. It just kind of says it's probably poor plating. All right, test that bearing. Well, it's working fine. You can place the oil on that. I oil the bearings. I do not grease them. Same reason. It gets to collect dirt and debris, and well, that just slows the reels down. I put a little bit of grease back onto the clean shaft. You can see the slot here. That's where that pin is riding. It's holding your gear sleeve on. So we're going to bring that back down. I'm going to bring it over to the side. You may not be seeing this. I'm going to use that same hammer that I tapped it out with to tap it in. And when you do that, make sure that that little side corner of that pin clears the ridge here, otherwise you won't be able to put your main gear back on. We're going to just check out the washers. This reel seems to be in very good condition. As I mentioned, it's saltwater fishing for big fish, so you want to check those drags when you're servicing a reel. In this case, they look almost brand new. We'll do the same treatment here that we did on the pinion gear. Again, I'll use that penetrating oil just to facilitate the cleaning of the valleys in the teeth. Take that bristle brush and we'll pull through. And I pull through onto the paper towel so that I don't transfer that back onto my bench where it might affect my next project. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, just leave those questions in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you. And, well, try to guide you if you're working on a reel and you're stuck, or just give you some further explanation or information on the reel, the manufacturer, when it was made, how it was used, and so on. And again, it doesn't have to be on this reel. Maybe you're in a garage or a shed or something, you just found a reel and you're curious about it. Maybe it's a reel that was in your dad or your grandfather's collection, and well, they've been sitting around for a while and you just want to know more about them. We've applied a fair amount of fishing reel grease to that. The fishing reel grease is Penn Precision reel grease. I'm using that not because it's necessarily a Penn reel, but because it is a fishing reel grease. These can go in dry or they can go in greased. They came in dry. We're going to put them in dry. This is a large reel with a 10 drag washer system. There are 5 of the fabric washers. There are 5 of the metal washers. There are 3 washers that have a rectangular center. They're called keyed washers, and you alternate the placement of those with the ones that have the circular center and the 2 studs. These are called eared washers. So there's one more of the keyed washers, so the eared washers are going in the slots in the main gear. And that last one rides on top of it, so it kind of goes like that. One more of the washers here. Now you have the option on these HT100 drag washers to put some grease on there if you want. Most of the time it's recommended if you do that, just wipe it off. Make sure that the ridges are still exposed for maximum drag efficiency. So this does have a lot of drag power in it. And well, we've serviced the bridge, the main gear, took off the pinion gear. Let's go rebuild the reel. We're going to start that by taking the two springs that are yoke springs, seating them in the cavity of the side plate. I just noticed I didn't put a drop of oil underneath the eccentric, so you can do that now. Next up, what we want to do is grab the yoke, and again, using some fishing wheel grease, just a little bit on the shoulders of the yoke where that's going to ride with the pinion gear. We'll take our cleaned pinion gear and place that over the yoke where the slot fits the shoulders of that yoke. Do a nice job greasing that up. We center this now on those two springs. You push down with the slot on the pinion gear facing you, and we pick up the jack, and that's how you set the assembly. Yoke springs, pinion gear, yoke centered over the springs, jack for the eccentric. All right, the next one up then is this anti-reverse dog. You want to start centering that. And what I like to do is get it on one side, so we'll put it on the bottom there. Remember, that gets a little crazy there, so just see if you can't bring that in. Sometimes this is going to flip off, so if it does, we'll just come back and reset it once we have the pinion gear in place. Let's just leave it out for now. Going to push in on the pinion gear, bring your assembly in, rotate over like this. We want to bring the anti-reverse dog over now. Now I'm going to go for the tip. Once you've centered the spring, bring that screw up, rotate this over, match that hole to the screw that's coming through, and just a turn or two to get that set up there. When that's on, make sure you snap the other side so that that plastic case stud is in the hole there. And then we can start the other three screws. As we mentioned, the screws are all the same, so it doesn't matter what particular location you put them. But what I like to do is I like to alternate the way that I tighten them so that I keep equal tension on the case itself. I don't want to bind that. Come over to the other side. We already started the one on the bottom there. That's two. One more over here then. And this one's fairly interesting. It has the spool adjuster on the gear side. A lot of the Penn reels use the bearing and a spool adjuster combination. And with that done, we just want to make sure that that anti-reverse is turning well, which it is. So that's your side plate, how it came together. The only place we didn't put any grease was on that jack there because, well, it was exposed. Now you can put it there, and as you bring it down, it will lubricate where it has to slide. For the installation of this, I like to leave it in that down position, which is free spool. We'll come over and we'll do the same thing on this side that we did on the other. I guess we have to reset the spool here. Just put a little bit of grease onto the shaft. That'll help it slide over the pinion gear. Bring the case in, line the case up. And now remember, 2 long screws go on this side, 3 short screws go on this side. Those 2 long screws have a different thread pattern to them as well. If you didn't notice, they are machine screwed, and I guess that's because they have to go into the bars that are crossing here. I'll take one of the small ones. Just like we did with the bridge, you want to balance the way that you're tightening these so that you don't have any offset tension in the case itself. So I just kind of go in the next pattern. We'll come back up top here. We'll do this one. So a big reel for big fish had a 6-year run. And as we mentioned, I believe it was made in China. I haven't seen anything on this reel that says made in the USA, and well, you know what they say. If it doesn't say it, it wasn't. When they were first making these reels over in China, they put these little stickers on about the size of a dime, easily peeled off, and a lot of folks just remove those stickers. Okay, last one's in. We'll just go back around, make sure that they're all tight. If this is used on a boat, and Ron does trolling with these, then engine vibration can shake these free pretty quickly. So just make sure that they're all tightened up. Again, we have a nice clip going on there. Let's set the rest of this in. We have our gear spacer or gear sleeve spacer. And grab the 4 zeros, 0, 0, 0, 0 steel wool. Bring that over. Right now we can mount our star adjuster. When you put this on, make sure that it goes on square. You shouldn't have any issue tightening down on this. If you're finding that it's going on and giving you a struggle, stop. Make sure that it's on square. Back it off until you find the right set for the screws, and you'll be happy, and you won't need to go buy a new gear sleeve. All right. So the only blemish on this is that loss of the metal on the internal parts, and this rust here, chipping. That probably happened. It probably hit a boat gun wall, or it probably hit a pier post or something, chipped off the thing. It could even be the metals. Maybe they were fishing metal lures with this reel, and as they came up, they swung and kind of chipped it that way. Never know, but if reels could talk, it would certainly be fun to listen to their stories. All right, we use the Penn reel tool to tighten down on our handle nut, or handle screw. It's actually a screw. We'll just tighten down on this, and we can give it a test. So what did we do? We took the reel apart completely. We showed you the mechanics of the reel. We explained a little bit about the reel's history. This is the GTO 230 by Penn, and a little bit how it's used with the bigger fish. We're in free spool now. We can spin that spool. It spins nicely. Again, if you want, you have the ability to adjust the tension on this. That will make it spin freer. Or if you like, tighten it up. That's particularly important when you're casting. You want to balance the spool speed with the lure that you're casting to get maximum distance and eliminate those bird's nests. Okay, put it in gear. Let's give it a test. It runs nice and smooth and easy. We didn't put a drop of oil in here. We can do that. This is an oiler, so has that little extension on it that enables you to get into those oil ports. Works nicely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. This is how to take apart, service, and maintain a Penn GTO 230 saltwater for large fish fishing reel. Before I leave, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, and rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I do appreciate everything they've done and continue to do. I want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage you again to subscribe. And of course, if you like this video, please indicate that by clicking the like button. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I want to wish you a great day, fast runs fishing on the water, and well, just general success all around. Have a great day.